Welcome to Lunch with Liz. I'm Liz, and why are you here? Well, I can't answer that, only you can, but I can tell you why I'm here. I'm here because about 3 years ago, I just decided I needed to have a vehicle so that I could have conversations with the community so that I could help dispel a lot of the myths and misunderstandings that there are about estate planning, about trusts, about probate, about Medicaid planning, about everything that I do every day. I was just seeing day after day these same misconceptions coming into my office. So I thought, well, if I could just have this once a month meeting with people, not a podcast where I'm just talking into space, but actual time that I can have conversation with people, then maybe I can help at least a few people out in our community make sure that they are making the right decisions for themselves. So that's what brought Lunch with Liz about, and that's why it's in this format and not just in a podcast format. How today is going to work is I have some slides, you can see that. I'm going to go over those, but that won't be the bulk. The bulk will be, I'll zip the slides off, and we will have a Q&A session. And that's where we can zig if you want to zig. I'd like to stay on the topic of estate planning and women estate planning. Some questions might be a little bit more in depth than I can do on this particular topic today. So I'll either tell you, hey, that's another topic, like maybe one we've covered before, and I'll direct you to where you can find that, or one that's coming up. Or you might be asking me a hypothetical that I just can't answer in front of everybody, and then I would just suggest you call my office and set up an appointment. But for the most part, I want to make sure that for whatever reason motivated you to be here today, that you leave with the answer or the resolution to the reason that you're here today. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. Oh, before we do that, questions. If you have questions, there's a couple different ways. One, if you're not shy, you can come off mute and just ask me the question. I love it too if you come off video or come on video so I can actually see who I'm talking to, but I do not require that at all. If you both don't want to unmute and you don't want to get off video, you can use the chat function. And I'll look at it from time to time during the time that I'm talking. But when we move it over to the Q&A, I'll put it up front and center so I make sure I address anything that you have question-wise as we're going through the material. All right, so it is Women's History Month, and during Women's History Month, we like to honor all of the incredible contributions women have made throughout history. But for the purposes of this session, we're looking forward. We're not worried so much about our past. We're looking about how we can move forward and secure your future. And estate planning is often overlooked or misunderstood as something that's only for the wealthy or it's only for older people. But the truth is, estate planning is one of the most empowering things that any woman can do to take care of herself and her family. Whether you're single, you're married, you're a parent, you're a business owner, whatever category fits you, having a plan in place ensures that your voice is heard, that your assets are protected, your loved ones are cared for, and one of the most important, in my opinion, is that your dignity is preserved. So what can we do to ensure that those four criteria are met? So over the course of the next few minutes, I'm going to just highlight some of the reasons why it's important that we do this and putting it all into context. But believe me, I'm not going to just leave you there flat. We're going to end with a step-by-step suggestion of what you can do, whether it's by yourself or with your team of professionals, to put a plan in place so that you can be empowered and take charge of your own future when it comes to estate planning. All right, second slide. So why does this matter now? Well, it's not just because it's Women's History Month. I mean, estate planning for women matters all the time. It just happened to fit in nicely with the theme this month. But when you think about estate planning, don't think about it as, hold on, we have somebody off mute, thanks. don't think about it just as legal documents or legal mumbo jumbo, because in reality, it's an act of self-care. It's about making sure that your voice is heard no matter what happens. So I'm going to walk through, again, these 5 reasons, and then we're going to have a discussion about what we can do to take control and empower ourselves. All right. First reason is, and this could be good or bad, right, is that we just live longer than men. I think the statistics show women right now at 81 and a half years of life expectancy, and for men it's about 76 and a half years of life expectancy. So that's nearly a 5-year difference in statistical life expectancy. And while that can be a wonderful thing, especially if we're healthy, it also means 5 more years of living expenses, 5 more years of healthcare expenses, and potential long-term care expenses as well. And when you're thinking about long-term care, this is one of the myths out there that I like to dispel, is that Medicare, that thing that you're entitled to at 65, it does not pay for long-term care. Yeah, it'll cover a little rehab here and there depending on the situation. But for long-term ALF care, long-term nursing home care, Medicare does not pay for that. There's only 3 ways to pay for long-term care in Florida. 1 is out of pocket. 2 is long-term care insurance, which not a lot of people have. And 3 is Medicaid. Not Medicare, but Medicaid. So having an estate plan in place that factors in these 3 different options to pay for long-term care is critical to ensure that your later years are spent on your terms, again, with that dignity, that comfort, and the security that we want. So the key takeaway for this slide really is you want a plan for your longer life, your 81.5 years of expected lifespan, so that we make sure that your resources are there and you have the team in place to make decisions for you if you need them. Now let's talk about the second reason, which is money. Money. Specifically, there is a distinct gender wage gap between what men make and what women make. And statistics show that it's generally about 82 cents on the dollar, which doesn't necessarily seem like a lot unless you're a penny pincher. But when you calculate that over, a 40-year working life, that's almost $500,000 in lost earnings. And what does that mean realistically? It means smaller contributions to retirement accounts. It means lower Social Security benefits and less accumulated wealth over your lifetime. And because of that, I'm giving you all the good news here today, right? Statistically speaking, women over 65 are 80% more likely to live in poverty than men. And the older women get, the higher, I think it even triples the percentage when you look at past 85 years old for women. And that's generally because we have not earned as much, we have not saved as much, we have stayed at home and raised the children, so we didn't have Social Security to fall back on and those types of things. So this is one reason, number 2, why proactive planning is so critical. We want to maximize tax advantage savings, optimize Social Security timing, potentially set up trusts, make sure our beneficiary designations are appropriate so that we can then stretch every dollar we can to build our secure foundation for our future. Number 3, and this is near and dear to a lot of us, I think, is women are more likely to be caregivers. And because of that, we kind of goes hand in hand with the slide before that. Some women take a step back from their careers to focus on either parents or children or spouses to be caregivers, which again impacts the ability to contribute to retirement, to build wealth, to contribute to future Social Security benefits. So over a lifetime, this can be, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost money. So things that we can do via the estate plan for setting up trusts for dependents, making sure guardianships are in place, designating backup decision makers, and ensuring our own financial security are critical steps to help us address this issue. Reason number 4 is many, if not most, women are going to be managing finances alone at some point in their lifetime. Whether it's through widowhood, divorce, simply choosing to remain single, whatever the reason, we all need to be prepared to be financially independent and run our own finances. And I see this all the time in my practice. I see, and it could be baby boomers, but it could also be Gen X and younger, both men and women, both heterosexual relationships and same-sex relationships, where there is one person that's just their job. They pay the bills, they know where the accounts are, they know where the passwords are. So for us, if we're not that person, we need to know where the things are. We need to know where the passwords are. We need to know where the accounts are. We need to know how the bills get paid. We need to know if there's life insurance policies. We need to know if there's debts. So many times I see where someone has died suddenly and the family has no idea about any of this, whether it's a widow or a widower or the children. I have a case right now where the mom and dad both perished in a car accident at the same time. They both have children of separate relationships, so there's 6 children in all. They were adults. They were living their lives. They had no idea what mom and dad were doing. So this is just illustrating that you need to be prepared for if your spouse or the person that's paying the bills is suddenly no longer there, either because they're incapacitated or they've tragically passed away, that you can step in and figure all that kind of stuff out. Equally important to this, just the last bullet of there, is building your professional team. That's your estate planning attorney, that's your financial planner, that's your tax professional. And I do have clients that say, Liz, I don't need a financial advisor. I've been investing my whole career. My stocks are doing good. My portfolio looks good. I feel pretty confident in everything I'm doing. And to that I say, fantastic. That's amazing. But, of course there's a but, do you know what you don't know? Do you know which accounts you should really be targeting right now that are going to be more tax advantaged when you retire? When you do retire, do you know which accounts you should be taking money from first? Do you know how to best strategize your long-term withdrawals of the money you've worked so hard for? And a lot of us don't know. We are not tax professionals. We're not money people. People think I'm a money person because my name's Moneymaker, but that's just not true. So I rely heavily on my advisor to tell me how to do these kinds of things. So think about that if you've been the person that's just taking care of it yourself for the most of your career. All right, let me just see. I think we have some questions. No questions yet. We have some commentary. That's great. Thank you. Okay, going to move on to the next slide. All right, so number 5, and honestly, this is the crux of me and my soapbox pretty much every day of my practice, is estate planning gives you control. And in the slide I say gives women control, but it gives people control. This is how you can really take care of yourself and your loved ones and your legacy. So what does that really look like in practice? So first thing about control that it gives you is asset protection. Depending on the type of plan we can put in place from you, it could possibly shield from creditors and other legal disputes. Certainly when it comes to long-term care planning, if we're knowing that eventually we're going to need to use Medicaid, we can make some decisions during the planning process that will help put that plan in place later when you might need it. Next, if you have minor children, estate planning lets you take control and name who you want to be the guardian of the child rather than a court deciding who gets to do that. It also lets you structure any distributions. Let's say you don't want your child to inherit everything you have when they turn 18 or 21. We can have a plan in place that lets you control from the grave, where they're getting an allowance or they're getting set distributions based on criteria that you decide. So it's like you're the parent that will always be there forever because you get to have this control over them for as long as you want your documents to have that control. Then third, for business owners, if you become incapacitated or you die, we need to have a plan in place that ensures that your employees can get paid, that someone can access the bank accounts, that if necessary we can sell the business. Main thing I see here is when a business owner might pass or have a stroke or something like that, and nobody else has access to payroll, nobody else has access to business accounts, and we're having to jump through hoops to go get the court involved to give someone that kind of access. So if you own a business, having a plan in place is critical to make sure that doesn't happen. And then the fourth way this gives you some empowerment when you do estate planning is if you have charitable giving aspirations, you have charities that are near and dear to your heart, animal issues, child issues, environmental issues, you name it. If that is where you want your money to go when you pass, and not to your second cousin twice removed or, your estranged brother, then having a plan in place ensures that that's where your money goes. If you've not heard me say this, I say if you don't have a plan, the government has a plan for you, and it's probably not going to be the one you want. I've seen the government's plan be put into place many times because the individual didn't have their own plan, and it can be catastrophic, especially if you're looking at a single person who is coupled up in a relationship, and by single I just mean unmarried, or you have married people who have children from separate relationships. Without putting a plan in place, in those situations, there could be people completely left out of any distribution. I've seen same-sex couples especially, actually both same-sex and heterosexual couples that aren't married, where one suddenly dies and the other one now doesn't have a house, doesn't have access to the bank accounts because nothing was put in place to make sure that the other person was cared for. So again, it's really just all about the control that you can have to make your estate plan the way that will ensure that you're taking care of yourself, your loved ones, and then ultimately any charitable aspirations that you have. So I have probably talked a mile a minute, and we've covered a lot of ground. I hope that I have left you motivated, inspired, and not overwhelmed, because it doesn't have to be overwhelming. And what I've done here in this slide is just kind of given you a checklist of some things that you could get started on if you haven't done anything at all. Number one is inventory your assets. Make a list of all your accounts, all your investments, all your real estate assets, your debts, your digital assets. So passwords to, Facebook, passwords to Gmail, passwords to bank accounts, so that your trusted person that you're going to name in your documents can have access to those things. Especially if you're the one in the relationship that is the financially savvy one and you're the one that's taking care of everything for your significant other, this is the greatest gift that you can give them. In January, we did a lunch with Liz on building your In Case I Die kit. And I'm going to ask Vicki to put a link to that in the chat. If you don't want to go and listen to the whole, hour talk, like it's much like this with some slides and some Q&A at the end, there is a checklist on the website with the video that you can print off that can help you start to get your inventory together, your In Case I Die kit together. One of the important things that we talked about in that Lunch with Liz session in January was your animals. What is your short-term plan if you get in a car accident, for example? Who has the key to your house? Who knows what medications the dogs or the cats need? So what's your short-term plan if something were to happen and you can't care for them? And then ultimately, what's the long-term care plan for the pets? Same thing with the children, just I don't have kids, so the pet thing became more important to me. All right, the second thing on your checklist, the first one I would say is number one. The second one is to check your beneficiaries. And believe me, let's say you started with your company 10 years ago and you filled out your 401k. Number one, you might not remember who listed. And number two, companies lose those forms. So it is a great exercise to make sure that all of the beneficiaries are up to date and that wherever the beneficiary forms are supposed to be with your 401k custodian, with your life insurance provider, that all of those are updated beneficiary forms in your file. And keep in mind that you can put beneficiaries on a lot of things, on checking accounts, on savings accounts, on CDs, on brokerage accounts. There are just about every asset that we have out there we can put a beneficiary on. So if that is how you want to pass your assets on when you pass, then putting a beneficiary in place is a good idea. It's not always the best idea, because if there is a special needs child or there's minor children, that's generally not the way we want to do it. Or if there's a beneficiary who's on Medicaid in a nursing home, that's not the way we want to do it. But if those situations don't apply, then oftentimes it's the easiest way and the least expensive way to plan your planning. All right, third thing and the fourth thing are kind of all go together, and that's just update or create your estate planning documents. So that's your basic stuff like your last will and testament, your powers of attorney for finances, your medical directives, maybe a trust, maybe a ladybird deed, which is a deed that essentially puts a beneficiary on the deed for when you pass, so it avoids probate. A good estate planning attorney is going to talk to you about everything that's on this slide and put together a plan for you that lets you take control, essentially. My philosophy is, what's the simplest way to accomplish your goal? And when we first meet, we're going to talk about what your goal is, what keeps you up at night, where do you want to be in the end when it comes to your estate plan. And then we put a plan in place. And if we can put you in a Corolla that takes you where you need to be, and that does just fine, then we don't need to put you in a Lamborghini to get you where you want to be. We can make it as simple and as cost-effective as possible. And then lastly there is, none of this does any good if nobody knows about it. So tell your trusted person either where you keep your documents or who your attorney is, where the documents are, if your attorney is keeping them, so that if something happens, there's somebody out there that knows where your important papers are and where your asset inventory is. All right, so we're not ending. I'm just ending the slideshow, but I did want to thank you for being here today, and I'm going to leave this up for just a second just to tell you that I do offer complimentary consultations when it comes to estate planning. So if you just don't even know where to start, that's a good place to start. It's just, let's come have a conversation and we'll talk about what you might need.